What's going on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today we're going to be talking about some big changes that may be on deck, a secret update you didn't even know about, plus even more. Definitely stay tuned. But before we jump into that, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like, and let me know down below in the comment section, how are you guys feeling now that Raven Software is apparently back in charge over in Warzone 2? So it was pretty much confirmed back during COD Next and during the launch of Warzone 2 that Infinity Ward was leading development and updates for the mode, but Raven has since been the one to really communicate all the big changes coming to the experience. They've been handling the patch notes and the Trello board for Warzone as well, so it does look like Raven is back on top with just Warzone specifically, while Infinity Ward probably just handles multiplayer, DMZ, the raids, even other aspects of the game, and even some future content. But as you guys are probably aware, right before Christmas, Raven dropped a bit of a surprise Christmas update for the Battle Royale, where they added loadout buy markers back into buy stations. Yes, you no longer have to wait until the public loadout event, where they finally spawn in right before the final circle, or you can just avoid even buying your primary weapons from buy stations and instead save all your money for just the basic loadouts. Now, as you can see from the prices, they are fairly expensive for solos, duos, trios, and quads. As I talked about before here on the channel, that change is kind of balanced considering the fact that money isn't that easy to come across over in Al Mazrah, so it's still a bit of a challenge to even buy one, but at least the option is there. I've been kind of in the middle with this whole debate as to whether or not loadouts should be back in Battle Royale. I think they made Warzone 1 fairly unique, and it was a standout experience compared to other Battle Royales out there, but at the same time, people just relying on spamming and opening chests within the first 2 minutes and then buying the loadout right away, it kind of takes away from the feel of what a Battle Royale really is. But don't forget about this report, which you guys probably didn't even see, but during Charlie Intel's call with Infinity Ward and Raven last week, the devs didn't appear to know that the ultimate perk was not functioning in Warzone 2 and have said that they will fix it. That fix still hasn't released in the game as of right now when I'm recording this video, but they also stated that the perks being editable in Warzone 2 is a bug and it shouldn't be like that. So that miscommunication alone is a little concerning, and I'm hoping that now that Raven is back on top of things, they're going to be fully aware of bugs like that a lot more quickly and can get on top of those things as fast as possible, because hey, I don't blame Infinity Ward, or I'm not sending any type of toxicity or negativity towards that studio, because you know what, they were really ambitious with Modern Warfare 2 and are still ambitious with even the post-launch season, with the amount of different modes that have come out for this game that are connected to either multiplayer or to Warzone 2. There's a lot going on with COD 2.0 right now, and we're not even a full season in yet to the game's life cycle. We're just about more than halfway with the first one. But with that being said, I think it does make more sense if Infinity Ward just focuses on DMZ, raids, the multiplayer, and whatever else, while Raven could just handle what they were already handling for many years, which is just Warzone. But there's a really good tweet that came out from the Ghost of Hope, who went ahead and said, and I quote, "Changes I see happening in the near future for Warzone 2 under Raven: 50 HP added for a total of 300 HP. That would be cool to help TTK. 3 default plate returns, 1v1 gulag returns, more quality life changes from Warzone 1 implemented, and then Warzone 1 plus Warzone 2 looting continue to merge like we saw happen with Season 1 Reloaded, and then running while plating also returning." I mean, those don't seem like some type of updates that would be too outlandish, that wouldn't really fit the ecosystem of Warzone 2. I think they could just pretty easily add those things back in to at least make the game feel more like Warzone 1, even though I personally don't have a problem with Warzone 2 right now. If the majority of the community does have a problem with everything going on with the movement, the gameplay, the pacing, then yeah, let's see some of these changes implemented back in. But I think a real problem with this is that it would essentially be Raven undoing what Infinity Ward just released with Warzone 2. Infinity Ward clearly had a vision to maybe innovate too much with their second iteration of Warzone, to the point where Raven's just going to kind of bring things back to where Warzone was prior to Modern Warfare 2's release. Maybe that's a good thing though, if they have data in front of them that says, hey, we have to make these changes because Warzone 2 just isn't working for the majority. Now, I honestly think that with the way the new looting system works, that's fine for DMZ, but people out there have come to a consensus that we need to go back to the Warzone 1 looting system, which I respect, but other things like not having 300 HP and only having 250, or not having 3 default plates, or even a 2v2 gulag, those things could remain in the game for maybe LTMs or other variants of the Battle Royale, maybe even just for third person or for something else, but then maybe regular Battle Royale could just be more traditional like Warzone 1, unless they have a plan to come out with like a Warzone 1 type playlist where Warzone 2 will then play like Warzone 1 with the things that Hope listed in his tweet, but then that won't be the default for the regular Battle Royale that is constantly going to be available through Warzone 2. That could be another way that to kind of win people back, or kind of meet in the middle with everybody in the community who wants a classic Warzone 1 like feel. We also had this tweet from Charlie Intel, which had me really interested. They went ahead and said, "It feels like we're going to see the devs slowly go back on the new decisions of Warzone 2 and see many of what made Warzone 1 great return, which is good, but so odd that this had to happen. Warzone 1 was unique because of loadouts, gulag, etc. Taking that away was bizarre. Like, why did we need to go through all of this? Why did the player count have to drop off a bit before they realized? Many of us told them the feedback at the next event in September. People who keep telling me, why don't you tell the devs the feedback? I do and did, but here we are. So this is a fairly bold tweet from Keshev over at Charlie Intel. Massive respect for putting out this thread, but here's the thing, right? I don't think the gap between COD Next and November 16th was big enough to walk back on too many of the new decisions that they already had in development, and maybe they figured, hey, let's at least see what the majority of the player base has to say about these changes, not just a select few creators that got to play the event at COD Next. Even though we got to record gameplay and we streamed it for many hours, that probably was enough feedback to kind of determine if the community is going to like one thing or another, but it's kind of a tough debate here, because I do agree. I think people out there have to actually play it for themselves to really know if they like it or not just watching their favorite creators, you know, burn through or speed run through a couple of matches of the Battle Royale or something. People have to feel it, so that might be why, in their defense, they waited so long to kind of walk back on some of those new decisions. But at the same time, is this also confirmation that Charlie Intel and the press have some data somewhere that does suggest and confirm the player count has dropped off for Warzone 2 drastically enough to warrant walking back on a lot of the changes that have since been added to the game ever since COD Next? Well, like I said, I like the idea of the 2v2 gulag, the proximity chat being encouraged so that it's a new way to escape the gulag together. I like those options, and the fact that loadouts weren't present at launch either. I'm also a fan of that because I'm more of a blackout guy in the sense that that played more like traditional Battle Royale. I've always loved Warzone, and I play it pretty often, but I think it was a nice change of pace for Warzone 2 not to have loadouts, but I think because it kind of put a dent in the content creation ecosystem for Warzone players, right? People that make top fives, loadouts, class videos, or people that, you know, post certain types of content, not having loadouts available so easily kind of hurt their style of content, and has since made a lot of the 1% of Warzone players go ahead and say that Warzone 2 just isn't a good experience. And the more they keep saying that with their status, with their community, with their audience, with their actual sub count, the more they keep saying that, the more the community is going to agree that, yeah, Warzone 2 just isn't good because of XYZ. But then you have a Black Ops 4 scenario where no matter what gets updated or added or changed in the long run, no matter what happens there, a lot of the big creators still don't like it, and a majority of the community still says and agrees that the game sucks. So it kind of puts the actual game and experience in a bit of a weird state where it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're the devs behind the scenes. But we have some follow-up tweets that I wanted to go over as well from the Ghost of Hope, and I think these will definitely make you guys debate quite a bit down below in the comment section. Assuming no further changes to the mechanics of Warzone 2 before or with the release of the Resurgence map in Season 2, then I expect to see a spike in player counts and then a massive fall-off again, because it's nothing like Warzone 1's iteration of Resurgence, which actually played well. And that's the thing, right? I think people can all agree that Resurgence did play well on Rebirth, but there were still a lot of people that would constantly tweet or make videos saying that Rebirth wasn't true BR. It was just a giant glorified TDM, and it was just faster paced Warzone, but it still played more like multiplayer. So I don't know if even going back to that style of Resurgence is what they want to go for with the new Resurgence map coming out at some point soon. I'm really curious how the community is going to respond to that when it does come out, but Hope might be right here. We'll have to wait and see. He then follows up with the frustration that will come with the low TTK, no plating while sprinting, slow movement, backpack looting, 2-play versus 3-play, etc., causing players to die where they wouldn't have in Warzone 1's iteration of Resurgence is gonna be very high. That's a fairly solid point, but maybe the problem with Warzone 2 is just Al Mazrah for some people, the map being so big, and maybe the way the gameplay works in Al Mazrah will fit a Resurgence map better because you'll see more action more often, to the point where it'll distract players from thinking about whether or not they like those mechanics or not, they like the pacing of the movement. They might not even think about that because of how much faster the Resurgence map is going to play from Al Mazrah. People out there just might accept that as it is. Now, something big that you probably didn't know about is not only did Rebirth and Fortune's Keep get removed from Warzone 1, and Warzone 1 servers went offline for a good, what, week and a half-ish, that then came back as a new application renamed Warzone Caldera. You probably didn't know that you no longer can access Warzone 1 for free like you might have used to. You actually have to own MW19 now to go ahead and play Caldera. That's a change that kind of went under the radar. Nobody really talked about it. I don't think Charlie Intel tweeted about it. They might have, and people out there might have assumed that was a bug or something, but no, Warzone 1 is no longer free to play. That in and of itself is a massive report that nobody out there has discussed, that I could see on YouTube, and maybe that's not not a bad thing because people out there aren't a huge fan of Caldera anyways. Nobody out there is tripping about that. But if Rebirth or Fortune's Keep were still in the game, or Resurgence altogether, people probably would have been tweeting Infinity War, talking crap everywhere that they possibly could, because they no longer were able to access their beloved Warzone maps without owning MW 2019. So when Hope went ahead and said, yes, I will go play a game that they actively butchered by doing the following to force people off the game, and then he mentioned A and B there, when he mentioned that, I'm like, wait a second, that is some pretty big self-sabotage for Warzone 1, but it was clearly intentional. They want everybody out there to transition to COD 2.0, which I understand, but now seeing people go back to Caldera and people praising Caldera, it kind of blows my mind considering how poorly received that map was throughout its entire life cycle. Even though the quality changes that map got were pretty positive for people, a lot of folks still didn't like that map, and to this day will say that it's the worst Warzone map to date. But it just reminds me of a Black Ops 4 scenario all over again, right? During BO4, everybody's out there just saying, oh, it's not BO3, the last Zombies was better, and BO4 bad, BO4 broken, devs don't listen. We're seeing the same thing happen again now with COD 2.0 right in front of our eyes, except this time, I think the casuals have still made it very clear that Modern Warfare 2 and Warzone 2 are still popular, but there might be some data that suggests that we need a Resurgence map. They gotta walk back on some of the new decisions, but other than that, I think Warzone 2 will be just fine, and it might just be the creators that have a bit of a shake-up to where they have to figure out new styles of content for Warzone that may have worked for 3 years in a row, but will no longer work going forward. But lastly, what I'll say about all of this is that it's kind of a double-edged sword. You can innovate too much, staining the foundation of what made Warzone 1 so great, but you can innovate too little as well, leading to people asking for more changes, since the old style might get a bit stale for most people out there. But then you have the top 1% or these celebrity content creators who can lean in either one of those directions, leading to impulse decisions from devs, which might not reflect what the community at large actually wants. The data from the casuals is the most important data, not just what people are saying in tweets or YouTube videos, but maybe, like I said, there is data that does suggest that changes have to happen, and changes will start happening over the next couple of seasons. But that is about it. This has been dkdynamite. Leave our thoughts down below in the comment section. What are your thoughts on the big changes that Warzone 2 may end up seeing? How are you feeling about the secret update that actually locked Warzone Caldera behind a paywall for MW19, and everything else we discussed? Really hope you've enjoyed, and peace out, everybody.